Hey guys, Brian Hilliard here, author of the best-selling book Networking Like a Pro and creator of the popular program How to Ethically Attract Higher-Paying Clients Without Being Pushy. And I am fired up here today because we have a friend of mine. His name is David Andrew. He is a transformational coach, mentor, and speaker. And David is actually joining us from the UK. David, thanks so much for spending some time with us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Brian, for inviting me.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. One of the things we've obviously known each other for about 6 or 7 months now. You came over here to North Carolina. You, your wife, my girlfriend, your brother, his wife, we all got together, actually had a little lunch, which was nice. And, one of the things that I think that we really connected on, and there's a few things I would probably say, but one of the things that we really connected on was this idea of mindfulness, mindset, spirituality, and just kind of pulling all of that together. And one of the things, and obviously it depends on when people are actually going to listen to this, but if they're listening to our live version of this right now, they know that we're in the middle of the outbreak. We're in the middle of some challenge going on in terms of people with a stay-at-home order and all kinds of stuff like that across the world, UK, US, stuff like that. And one of the things that we were kind of talking about, David, was this idea of people keeping their head on straight, for one thing, just for lack of a better term, and being able to kind of stay above water. And I know as a transformational coach, you come into contact with people like that all of the time who are, they're struggling, they're having some challenge. Talk a little bit about maybe what you're doing to kind of meet people where they're at, just in terms of, what are the conversations like right now? Because there's a lot of life coaches right now who are listening and they're like, boy, you know what? It just seems like I know everyone's hurting, but like, what is it that you're saying? And then what we'll talk about while, after that is how to potentially convert that into a discovery call, because that was also something that we were talking about as well. But first, tell people how you kind of like, what are you even talking with people about during this time period, if you don't mind us asking?
Sure, Brian. I'll be happy to share that with you. As I say, like we are in a lockdown and I'm not meeting people face to face, obviously, for obvious reasons, but I'm having conversations on video chats and phones, and just occasionally I bump into people in a supermarket, or I'm
Right.
helping people out who are vulnerable, with their shopping and cleaning or whatever I can do. I'm actively involved out there, keeping my social distance at the same time. But the sense that I'm getting, and the media, the way the media keeps on saying things every day, it kind of gives people some hope, but not a complete hope of freedom to say, yeah, life's going to be back to normal today. So I feel that many people are still feeling a little bit anxious, definitely not sure how their life's going to be once the lockdown sort of, withdraws. And there's a sense of not knowing what's going to happen to us.
Right.
Now, I hear that a sense of, when you don't know what's going to happen to you, what if, what if, what if, things people are beginning to sort of imagine, like, what if I don't have my job again? What if my business doesn't open? What if I don't have money? What if? And these things have not yet happened, but people are beginning to worry about them. And I know that when people start worrying, a sense of anxiety starts to build in.
Right.
Because they can't solve it. They want to solve it.
Right.
And that's what I'm beginning to sense with people. Now, when they tell me about how they are feeling, how are you? Oh, some people are okay. I'm managing on a day-to-day basis. Other people say, you know what, I'm not sure. Often they'll blame the government for not doing enough.
Right. Right.
Or, they'll blame a country or some kind of politics or whatever.
Right.
And I said, in a way, they're expressing how they truly are feeling.
Right.
So their expression is what really is how they experience it, but not necessarily that is what the real reason is.
Right. Right, right, right. And I think you make a really good point. You're talking about, the idea of the outbreak and the anxiety. I think for a lot of people, there is just a general uncertainty that is causing them that degree of anxiety. And, what we were talking about before was as a transformational coach, as a life coach, it's like, boy, what is it that we can do to pull that into like business? And I hate to say it like that, but it's like, what can we do to pull that into, maybe business is the wrong word, but at least what can we do to develop a client working relationship with people where we know that there is a problem? And one of the things that, and we were talking about this offline, and you mentioned a video that I did talking about this as well, which is, setting up a Facebook group. That's a real benign way to be able to say like, hey, listen, I'm hearing a bunch of stuff. If you'd like, I've got a group that talks about X, Y, and Z. My group is how to get higher paying clients without being pushy, but somebody else's group might be something else, right? It might be, dealing with difficult circumstances, or how to excel when the chips are down, or being healthy in an unhealthy world. Just came up with that actually about 10 minutes ago when I was in the shower. But the idea is that, you've got these different things where, and you're like, Brian, why would I want to transition people to a group? Because you're talking to people initially, they're giving you challenge. You want to get to here where you've got this discovery call, but there's a gap. And the question people have is, how do we manage this gap? It doesn't feel right to say, well, why don't we book a 30-minute session? Let's figure this out. But what could be something in between is, well, listen, why don't we, listen, I've got a group. If you want, I'll send you the link. Sign on. It's a free deal. We've got some tips and tricks. I'm going live tomorrow or every Tuesday at 2. And, and then from that group, it's a bridge step. From that group, you can then offer one-on-one discovery calls complimentary to the members of that group. So like there are definitely some different steps that you can do, to be able to do that and to be able to essentially allow you to be able to tap into and help people through that anxiety. And speaking of which, one of the things that you and I have talked about, and I love the conversations we've had on this, is, you talk about renewing your mindset. And you talk about coming from this place of peace, and you've talked about kind of pushing away this place of anxiety and worry. What do you do? Walk some of the listeners and the viewers here who are watching us or even listening to us. Tell us a little bit about what you do to kind of renew yourself and to renew your mind so that you can, continue to be refreshed and renewed.
Right. Okay. Thank you. As I say, probably, years ago, I was a very miserable guy. I went through a lot of, challenges in my life, and I was a worrier, and I hit rock bottom, to cut a long story short. But I read somewhere, and this is what I read. It says, do not conform to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind.
Right.
Now, there's a lot packed into that little sentence there, and I had to sort of decipher it. And it took me a long time to decipher and to understand what are the patterns of this world, the world that you live in, the world that you've created for yourself or with people with whom you have created this world. What are the patterns of this world that you're conforming to, which is not really helping you? For example, like if I took your medication, I know medications are good, but if I took your prescribed medication, it won't be good for me.
Right.
It'll be good for you.
Right.
So I had to find things in my life to say, what am I conforming to the patterns of this world that are not good for me, but I'm just doing it because everybody else does it.
Right.
So that was the first part of the message. The second part of the message, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So the transformation doesn't happen until you identify the things that are not helping you. And then once you've identified them, I found 23 things in my life that I needed to change. They were not good, they were not bad, they were not like right or wrong. It was just that it wasn't for me.
Right. That's
I was
interesting.
trying somebody else's tricks which wasn't working for me, and I tried hard enough that it brought me misery. You know, I had ambitions, I had goals, or I had aspirations, what somebody else was doing, and they were successful. And I was going up that road, but it wasn't for me. I had to find my own path, which worked for me. And I found it. So the renewing process is like almost you go through a tunnel, a dark tunnel. And that's when you start thinking about things that say, hey, at the end of the tunnel, what would I like to be like? What would be the best version of David Andrews?
Right.
What would be the best version of Brian Hilliard, or what would be the best version of anybody else?
Right.
That was the process that I went through. So renewing of your mind is a deliberate, continuous process, diligently worked through. And that's where coaches like yourself and like me can help a lot of people, because it's not like you start one day and you do it for a week and you stop.
Right.
Coaching is all about empowering, as we said, and it takes accountability. And it's a very clear plan of how you're going to make this work. You have to be decisive. So these are the things that I did, but I was doing it all on my own. It took me 7 years. This was a long time. And I don't think so it should take anybody to take that 7 years to happen. 7 years helped me to become stronger because I made mistakes along the way.
Well,
I slipped back. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was going to say, I think the part that I love about that is that really I love that first step, which is identifying the patterns of this world. You know what I mean? And you know, and I know you know this in the Bible, it has that conversation, which is, you know, something along the lines of, you know, don't live by the patterns of this world. Don't judge yourself by the words, by the deeds, by the, you know, your actions of this world. Okay, because store up a treasure, you know, and talks about all kinds of other stuff. But the idea is that I love that because, you know, I think part of it, it's almost like, and you correct me on this if I'm wrong, but it's almost like there's a population of people that it's almost like they need to go through a detox. And maybe we're all there. Like, I feel like I have to do that every once in a while too. They just need to go through a detox so that they themselves can, for lack of a better term, just relax a little bit and purge some of all of this stuff out of their system. And that in and of itself is a renewal.
Yes, yes. I think renewal is renewal is just like when you change your shirt, you've got a new shirt on. And that happens with your mind. And mind is a very complex thing that we know. We can think about one day about certain things and, you know, say, oh, I will not do it. I change my mind. And we can change our mind. We have the freedom.
Right.
And there's so much freedom and choice at our disposal that we do not sometimes understand what is really good for us. And sometimes you have to try things to find out whether it's going to be good for you or not.
Interesting. Right.
Yeah. But I always said to somebody when I work in prisons, you know, and I go to prisons and I say to people, you say, you know what? We all make mistakes, and we are quite capable of making mistakes at any given time. But there are some mistakes that you might recover from, but there are some mistakes that you might not recover from.
Right.
So we need to develop a sense of self-awareness, a sense of emotional intelligence. These are big words. I know there are a lot of books and
no, this is good stuff, though.
But I have read a lot about these things, and I know if I do this, these are going to be the implications. These are going to be the consequences. And sometimes we'll take risks. I'll see if I can get away by doing this. If I can get away. If nobody finds me out, I can get away.
Right.
And the more you get away, what happens is you're building yourself a big web of false security.
Right. Again, because right, whether that false security is your job, whether that false security is money, whether that false security is vocation, which is different than a job, whether that false security is, whatever the case may be. Tell us a little bit. I know obviously you and I have known each other for a little while. Tell some of these guys a little bit from whence you came. Obviously, you're a transformational coach. Obviously, you're out there in the UK. People might not know about your story or anything like that. Give us a quick, maybe like 90 seconds of what you are all about with that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, well, one of my values or my purpose of being a coach is to help people transform from darkness into light. Now,
Okay.
that's a figure of speech.
Right.
Darkness into light. What is darkness? What is darkness? Darkness is something that where you're confused. You can't find your way. You're lost, right? And often people might not feel lost in the sense of about going about their day-to-day business, but they feel like, what's the purpose of my life? You know, why am I doing this job? I don't even like it. There's a sense of confusion. There's no sense of direction. I define that as a place of dark place because you don't know where you're going. You're traveling, but you're traveling without a destination.
Right.
Or have a map towards getting it. So I say that darkness into light. What does light do? Light actually helps us to see where the areas are, where the potholes are, where the barriers are, you know, where the challenges are. It shows things up, you know, it shows up. And it's not rocket science to understand the difference between light and dark. Right. I use this as a metaphor because it's easy to understand that although no matter, you don't know today where you're going, your past has brought you today over here, wherever you are. You can't change your past anymore. It's done. It's done. It's too late. You can't change it.
Right.
Right. Where do you want to go from here? That's what matters now. And often when I ask this kind of question, people don't know. Oh, of course, they say, I want to be happy, or I want to be rich. I want this and I want that. I said, all those things are possible, but do you have a map to get there? What are you going to do?
Right.
So that's where a discovery session sort of starts and kind of finishes. And I say, if you want to sign up, let's have a, you know, let's talk about this. Let's have a clear goal, a clear purpose where you want to be. You know, let us look at the potential that you already have that you've never actually used into. Right. Something that are inside you, like everybody has a piece of diamond inside them.
Right. Diamond in the rough, right?
Yeah, diamond is never sitting on a ring, right? They have to be dug out from a ground. It's dirty. It doesn't look like a diamond.
No, it doesn't. It looks dirty, and it's dirty work.
Yeah,
and it's hard work.
Nobody knows until you start digging into it. So when you start digging into your potentials, you'll be surprised that every single person on this planet has a level of potential.
Right.
So I believe that, you know, from a coach perspective, I always see that there's a potential for people to move forward, to grow. Yeah.
That's good stuff. Let me bring up one more point and then we'll wrap up, because this is something that you and I have connected on, but it's something that other people struggle with as a coach, which is spirituality. And I think there is a population of people, and it's not right or wrong, it's just left and right. There's a population of people who are like, you know what, I'm not spiritual at all, and I just want to talk about, you know, what they need to do, and that's fine. That's not you and I, but it's fine. Then, but there's this other population where it's like, you know what, I have a degree of spirituality, I have a degree of whatever. How is it that I can incorporate some of that into my practice? And I know people, like, I've had this conversation with myself too, which is like, you know, I don't want to come across as somebody who's like boom, 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 but at the same time, I'm not trying to hide the fact that I'm a spiritual person. Coming from your perspective as well, also being in the UK, what would your advice be to a coach who has a degree of spirituality, wants to be able to kind of incorporate that into their practice? Give us a feel for how you do that.
I think for me, the way I do spirituality, even though like I was born in a Christian family, and often we connect spirituality to some kind of religion. I come from Bombay, India, so we are a very sort of a religious country. You know, a lot of Hindus are there, and So I grew up in a very religious environment, but I discovered that being religious doesn't mean being spiritual, and vice versa.
Interesting.
Now, and both can work in tandem together. You know, I can connect my spirituality to my religion if I wanted to. But there are people, at least in the secular world that we live in,
Right.
where religion has viewed in a very different light
Right. Right.
and
Right.
spoke in a different ways. And
Right.
there are negatives, there are positives. And I had to find a space for myself, calling myself a religious person or a spiritual person. And I had to distinguish what does that actually mean. For me, to be spiritual is to be more reflective, to be more self-aware, to see what thoughts I'm entertaining, where these thoughts are coming from, to get a little bit deeper into my responses, to my reactions to things. And what is that does, it brings us to a place of more of being mindful of who we are as people. Mindfulness, meditation are the most two popular words that are being used everywhere, and people are actually teaching that. I don't teach mindfulness, neither meditation, but I talk about how you can incorporate those two things into your natural existence without being to say, oh, I need to be mindful of this, I need to go to my
Right.
zone. And going into the zone, doing your yogas and doing quiet meditation, listening to music, going for nature walks, this is all, they are all instrumental in helping you to become that person. But I don't do a lot of those things. I have learned through my thinking that I am a person who is aware of myself. I know my weaknesses. I know my strengths. I know what damage I could cause to people because I have the power, the choice, and I have become aware of my actions. The more you become aware of your own actions and your behavior and how you talk to people or how you talk about other people, how you engage with your spouse, with your children, this is all part of being spiritual because it's you. It's all happening inside your soul. You know, what you do outside is like a help to say, I need to be spiritual, I need to meditate, I need to go for mindfulness, breathing. They are all like aids. They aid you to get you into that place. I did that several years ago, but now I don't do it because I've disciplined my thinking over the years that as a natural human being, I can still be a very spiritual person. You know, I don't know if you know, like when you meet somebody in life, right? You meet somebody, or you know, or in person or on the phone, and you feel good being around them for some
Right.
reason.
You connect with them. Right.
Yeah, you connect. Like you and I connected very, very quickly.
Right. Right.
Now we did
Right.
not go with an attitude of, oh, I'm going to connect with Brian as soon as I see
Right.
him. No, there was a sense of energy, almost like
Right.
a law of attraction. There was
Right.
something unspoken. And I think I'm more aware as a person with whom I'm engaging with. So it is a learned skill, if that's the right thing to say. You have to
No, that
learn
makes
to be
sense.
spiritual. Yeah.
That makes sense. And I think also what I heard in that was that as a coach, when you're connecting, I heard a few things actually. I heard that spirituality and religious are making a distinction. Totally fine with that. I also heard that you didn't actually say this, but I heard that it's kind of who you be. So if
Mm.
you're going, you know, you talk about if you're going to be a spiritually based coach, that's fine. Then you just need to be that type of person. You need to be at peace. You need to be less critical. You need to be more open. You need to be more of a connector. You need to be, you know, whatever, these types of things. And then to your third point, which is also what I heard, which is the idea that you have there's an energy that goes out and that, you know, for me personally, when I talk to people about this, I say, listen, I don't go out of my way to talk about, God or the church or the Bible. Like, I don't go out of my way to do that. I don't really
Mm.
do that. But I do, if I feel like it's relevant, will bring it up during a discussion. Like I'll say, this is your road to Damascus moment. Or I'll
Yes.
say, this
Yeah.
is, I don't know, something else. You know what I mean? But like, I will say those kinds of things. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that when you say that, I'm just talking myself, but when you say
Mm-hmm.
that in a way that's coming from a place of, here's what's going on versus here's what you need to do, I
Mm-hmm.
think you totally will do that. So that's some awesome stuff. Listen, we have to go here, David, but that was like really, really, it's like the time flies. You sit down, you're like, oh my gosh, we're fine. Then you look up and it's like, we got to go. So, but this
Yeah.
was really, this was a really good conversation. Tell these listeners where they can connect with you, maybe on LinkedIn or your website or something like that. Where can we find you?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, David Andrew Coaching. My website is davidandrewcoaching.com. I'm on Facebook, davidandrewcoaching.com, and I'm on Twitter, davidandrewcoaching.com. So it's davidandrewcoaching.com. And you
Awesome.
can ask Siri or Google, and they'll still find you.
That
Find
is
me, yeah.
that is awesome. That is really good stuff. Well, that over there, ladies and gentlemen, is David Andrew. My name is Brian Hilliard. I'm saying so long, take care, and thanks so much for your time. We really appreciate it.